This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nizahon, and today I'm bringing you a bonus video. Tomorrow, May 13th, is, believe it or not, the 7th anniversary of me creating this YouTube channel, which is kind of crazy. It's sort of insane that it's been that long. But yeah, I started it on May 13th of 2015, and that's how we're at 7 years now. And, sort of in commemoration of that fact, I wanted to do a Q&A or an Ask Me Anything or whatever you want to call it. And I used to do these more often, like when I hit subscriber milestones and stuff, but it's been several years probably since I've done one of these. So that'd be fun to do one. I let people on the YouTube community page ask me a bunch of questions. I think I picked out 12 that we're going to answer here, and they're about a range of things, some of them magic related, some of them not. So let's begin. So the first question was asked by Maya Klein. And the question is, what made you start as a content creator? Did you ever intend to be this successful, or did you start it off as more of a hobby? So I did start it off as a hobby, and really for the first several years. So let's see. I started the channel in 2015. That was when I was still working on my PhD. I got my PhD in 2018. And after I completed my PhD, I had teaching responsibilities and stuff, but I hadn't landed a tenure track job. I had more time, basically, than I'd ever had when I was working on my PhD. And so around 2018, 2019 is when I started kind of doing YouTube as a full-time job or close to it. Before that, when I started the channel, if we go way back to 2015, the channel was just draft videos, basically. That was how the channel started. It was about limited. I didn't start making top 10s until 2016. That's sort of become the main aspect of this channel, basically, in terms of views and things like that. It's definitely become about the top 10s, but it started as a limited channel. And that was really just me recording, doing drafts, which was just what I was doing. And there was one draft video a week. And that's kind of what it was for a year. I didn't do full set reviews. I did do short videos about the best commons and uncommons in a set. So it really started as a hobby. When like I said, in 2018, when I ended up having more time than I did before, that's when I started cranking out 2 top 10s a week, which is the norm now. That's when I started streaming. That's when I started doing a lot more YouTube wise, because, I kind of wanted to give it a chance, especially because finding a job wasn't going super well, a tenure track job. And I still don't have one of those. So YouTube has, more and more, and making magic content in general has more and more become a larger percentage of my income. But I am basically full-time these days in magic content creation, whether it's writing articles for Card Kingdom or YouTube videos or streaming, pretty much full-time on it now. And teaching right now is more of a part-time job. Still, kind of on the hunt for a tenure track job that suits me and things like that. But that's how things are for now. So basically, no, never really intended it to be successful. Started as a hobby for the first several years of the channel. It was really sort of a part-time thing that I did when I could. And then starting in 2018, it really ramped into more of a full-time deal. So didn't really ever think it would be this successful, I guess. But I'm glad that I was once I started making more and more content because, frankly, I needed the income. So it's worked out pretty well. So thanks to all of you for being here. We've got almost 74,000 subscribers these days, and that's pretty great. Videos get viewed and all of that's awesome. So that answers that first question. There's also a related question that I kind of partly answered already, I guess, from Hal Erickson, who asked, are you still actively teaching history, or is this now your full-time gig? So the answer is yes to both. I do still teach, but like I said a minute ago, it's more of a part-time job while this is my full-time gig, but I am also still actively teaching. So all of that is going on, but I don't have a very large course load. I teach 2 or 3 courses a semester. So yeah, so that's what's going on to be more specific about what's full-time and whether I'm still teaching history. So another question from Ethan Brunot is, have you ever delved into any other card games? If so, which ones? What made you decide to drop them or didn't keep you hooked on them? So this is an interesting question, and this is a sort of funny thing that I've noticed about my life trajectory recently is way back in the day, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, I would right around the same time I was getting into Magic, I also got into the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game because, late 90s. And I was super active on the official message board that Score Entertainment ran, and I eventually became a moderator on that message board. I got like free cards and stuff, which was cool. And I even reviewed cards and stuff for Pojo, if you remember that website, which had Magic stuff too. It had all kinds of stuff on it. So it's kind of funny. I was 13. So, like age 13 to 14 is when this was going on. And, I wrote an article actually that was in like a magazine about, a certain deck tech and stuff like that, when I was really young. But then, I sort of, the card game basically ended. They didn't do a very good job of making sure the card game was going to continue, because they just, every set was moving forward in the story. And once they got to the end of the story, they didn't really know what to do. And so the card game ended, which was kind of sad. Back then, I thought it was a pretty fun card game. But it's funny because I was basically a content creator for a card game 20 plus years ago. And, you fast forward to me at age 33 today, kind of doing the same thing, but with a different card game. So it's kind of funny how that worked out with, the getting educated and a PhD somewhere there in the middle. And now I'm back to sort of doing what I did when I was 13. But yeah, so it's kind of funny. So that's the other card game I got into, maybe on the same level. I'm into Magic, but, I also played the Pokemon card game. Who didn't? That's my age, basically. That's really what got me into collectible card games. Again, that's true for a lot of us who are of that age. So I played that one. Other card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Very briefly, like a month of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then I got over that. If you want to talk about digital card games and stuff, I played a bit of Eternal, a little bit more of Hearthstone, but, these days it's pretty much just Magic. But those are some of the other card games, with the Dragon Ball Z one really kind of being a funny story of who I was in the past. And if you're one of those people who was also involved with that card game and stuff, my username that I used for stuff was Krillin, with DA instead of the. How cool is that? So that was my username. So but yeah, it's kind of funny that I've ended up sort of in the same space I was in when I was 13 years old, but in a world where it's easier to monetize creating content than it was back then. So yeah, that's it for other card games. So the next question is from Husem Sama, and it is, what does Nizahon mean? So this is a question I get a lot. I answer it from time to time on stream too, and I'll answer it here. So the word, I pronounce it as Nizahon here on the channel because it's already a challenging enough word for people to pronounce. But the correct pronunciation of the word is actually Nizahon with a guttural in it because it's Hebrew, and it means victory. The verb lenatzech, which has the same, root of nun, tzadi, chet. That same root means to succeed, to win, to defeat someone, more or less. And so that's what it means. My background in history is that I study Jewish history. Hebrew is one of my research languages, obviously, because of that. And I'm also Jewish myself, so it was the name I went with. So a related question asked by Patrick Smalley is, Karn is a silver golem, a creature from Jewish mythology. Does that factor in to why you like him so much? And the answer is, yeah. So this is another story going back to that same time when I was, a little before actually, moderating on that Dragon Ball Z collectible card game message board. In the late 90s, Urza's Saga had just come out, and I was actually going to buy Pokemon cards because, again, that's what people were doing. And it had been my birthday. So it was, I guess that means it was late. My birthday's in September. I think it was September 1998. I think I've looked up the date when this would have lined up before, and I think that's right. Yeah, and so I had money, or a gift card actually, to go to Hastings, which was kind of like Barnes and Noble meets Blockbuster. It was a local chain in the southwestern United States, basically. Doesn't exist anymore. But I went there with my Hastings gift card, and they had, cards, but they were out of Pokemon cards. What they did have was Magic cards, and this is when I first bought Magic cards. First really ever heard of the game, saw them, anything like that. And they were Urza Saga packs, and the very first rare I opened was Karn Silver Golem. So I have an affinity for Karn as a result of that just being the first rare I ever opened. But also, at the time, I'd learned some about Jewish folklore and stuff, in general. And I knew golems were from Jewish mythology. So that gave me sort of an extra interest in Karn as, this character and this card. And so, yeah, I ended up really liking Karn. And that's why, he's my avatar on Arena. He features in various things that have shown up on this channel. I did a historic brawl with one of Karn's planeswalkers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I like Karn. It was my first rare ever, but the Jewish mythology part of it also matters. If you want to know more about golems in Jewish mythology, I did do an MTG Top 10 on golems a few years back, and I go in greater depth about, what they were in Jewish mythology, Jewish folklore, probably a better word for it, in general. So that answers that. The next question comes from Nicholas Montano, and it's, if you could get more eyes on one video or series, which would you choose? I think I would choose my deck history series. That series involves more work and research than basically any other series I do. I mean, it depends on the top 10. Some top 10s require more research, but they don't require quite as much effort in terms of making all the visuals, like the deck lists and all the stuff I do on those. And so, it feels better to get a good return on the number of hours I spend on a video. Yeah, I mean, I wish those got more views. Most of my top 10s get to 20,000 views within, a couple of weeks. And the most deck history videos get to like 13,000, and that's okay. But, I would like for there to be more eyes on them for sure. And I like making them, and I'm going to keep making them. But I would be happier about it for sure, about how they're going if there were more eyes on them. On a related note, David Rebecci asks, how do you animate, edit, produce your videos? What software do you use? What advice can you give to aspiring content creators on exactly how to make their own videos? So, in terms of animations, I don't do any of them. My friend Mike does. You can find his YouTube channel in the description to this video, and all of my videos actually, because he's credited for doing all the motion animations. So the intro and the outro are stuff that he did. So I have no idea how to do that. He does, but I have no idea. In terms of editing, I use Adobe Premiere. That's another place, basically Mike taught me how to do that. He's an animator by trade. He knows how to do all this stuff. So he taught me how to do that basically over time. In terms of producing my videos and how the process goes, generally the way I do it is I do the research that sort of tells me what direction I'm going in. So if it's a top 10, for example, I look up all of the tournament data for every card and sort of figure out what cards are making it in that particular top 10. And then I, calculate their scores and everything the way I do. And then I write the script. And then generally I create the visuals, and then I record the visuals, record the audio and the intro, which I'm on camera for these days. And then I go through and edit it all together. And that's usually how it goes. Sometimes I add something else in, for a visual that I didn't think to when I was just writing the script and such. So, but yeah, it's all Adobe Premiere. Advice I would give to aspiring creators in general is like I was saying a moment ago, the first, my YouTube channel was a pretty small thing for a while, but the advice I would give that I think is the most important is, first of all, pick something that you enjoy doing, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to motivate yourself to do it. And just do it and keep a schedule and keep it going, and you'll grow. I mean, it might not be very fast. It took me a year to get to 1,000 subscribers. It took me over a year before I reached the $100 threshold for actually getting paid by YouTube. And so things are slow. Don't quit your job and try to make it work, because it's going to take a while in most cases, unless things, you're amazing or lucky. It's going to take a while to make it work. It's better to just sort of start it as a hobby. See, this isn't how, as I mentioned a minute ago, I didn't calculate things to go this way, where I was like, I'll start this as a hobby and then I'll turn it into something that actually is a decent percentage of my income. That's not how it went. That wasn't my plan, but it did work, where I sort of was doing it as a hobby. People seemed to like what I was doing. It allowed me to gauge that I had an audience for what I was doing. And so eventually it sort of became a more full-time kind of thing. But that's the biggest advice. Don't even worry. In the early part of creating content, I wouldn't even worry that much about making sure you have the right camera or microphone or editing software. I didn't have any of that stuff. Go back and watch some of my earlier videos. You'll see I didn't have it. That way you don't have to invest a bunch of money in something that may not pan out. That way you can do it with the minimal requirements, and figure out whether you have an audience, and then slowly upgrade your stuff, which I've done over the years. So that's the biggest advice I would give in general. Premiere, Adobe Premiere is great for editing videos and stuff like that too. And there's lots of guides out there for it as well that help. So yeah, that's the answer to that. So next question comes from Raging Goblin. How long did it take you until you made money with the channel? Are you actually doing this full time? Those I kind of just answered, but to reiterate, it took me, I think it was like a year and a couple of months before I got my first $100 from YouTube. And as I said earlier, I am doing this full time, but that doesn't mean I don't also have a part-time job on top of this full-time job. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Full-time YouTuber, part-time college instructor is sort of where I am right now. So another question here is, could you outline your research process? I've always been fascinated by the data. So I've talked about this a little bit, but I think what this question and what several other questions are getting at are, where do I get all this data from for my top 10s and stuff? And the answer is that I use I use a few different websites, but the primary tool, the one that has the best sort of historical database of decks going back to like 1994 is mtgtop8.com. You can find lots and lots of decks on there. It's a lot of data to comb through. It's not like I can just type in a card and it tells me, hey, this is, how many Pro Tours and Grand Prix and so and what formats. You basically have to comb through it all and figure it out all for yourself. But the data is all there, well, mostly. There are some events like legacy and vintage events that don't really appear on it before like 2011 or so. So for some of that, you have to look elsewhere. You have to look up, deck lists and big tournament reports and stuff. But mostly the answer is, as to where I get the data from, is mtgtop8.com. So yeah, I think that answers that question. Lots of people ask that question. And yeah, the process, once I've looked up a card and I know a card, I have, a document where I have the data for all the cards that I've already calculated. And so that does speed things up. If there's a top 10 with lots of cards that I've already done that part on, I just have to update it based on when that last video came out. And still using mtgtop8.com, but seeing if it has any new top 8s, etc. So yeah, that's how that works. All right, next up, we have kind of a funny one from Nick Balms, and it's, will you ever get down to doing Drew's, also known as the Glorious Lobster Emperor? Will you ever get down to doing his top 10 vintage cards minus the Power 9? At this point, it's practically a feature on every single MTG top 10 comments list. So, the Glorious Lobster Emperor, if you pay attention to the comment section on top 10s, almost every time he posts asking when I'm going to do this, or tying the top 10 into requesting this. Sometimes it's a little smoother as a transition. Sometimes he's just asking point blank, and he's a patron, so sometimes he talks about it in the patron Discord as well. So it's happening all the time. And so the answer to this is I probably will get around to doing it. Part of the reason I haven't is that I don't think it's frankly going to be very interesting. I think the answer to this is just going to be, even once you take out the Power 9, the answer to this is just going to be a bunch of cards that you expect to be on it. It's going to be lots of powerful cards that have been played forever, apart from the Power 9. Cards like, Force of Will and all of these sorts of things. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that interesting, if I'm being honest. And that's part of what makes me... I know the research is going to be a ton, too. I mean, that's part of it. But if I thought it was actually going to come out and be interesting, I think I'd be more motivated to do it. But I think I will do it at some point. I think I need to do one for every format at some point. I might start with some other formats to sort of get my legs under me for this kind of top 10. But yeah, it's definitely one that I think it would do well, probably as well. So it'll happen. But the reason I sort of have been dragging my feet about it is I don't think it'll be interesting, coupled with the fact that it's also a massive amount of work. And that's not a great combination for motivating me. All right, so our last question comes from Fake Name. I bet that's their real name. What does a typical day look like for you? So, yeah, the typical day for me, generally, I wake up at about 6:30 in the morning, usually partly woken up by either our cat or our dog, but it's about when I want to get up anyway. I like to say they hold me accountable because that's about when my alarm goes off. And if it weren't for them being kind of obnoxious, I probably would sleep later. But I have to get up and feed the dog, especially. The cat usually wants something as well. We also have, pets are a big part of our lives in this house. And so we also have a bunch of rodents, which I've talked about on and off on the channel. So right now we've got 2 rats, 2 mice, 4 hamsters, and that's all. Yeah, that's all we have right now. And we foster some of them. Some of them are sort of in hospice care for a local animal rescue. And so I generally check on them in the morning after, seeing to what the dog wants from me. So I check on them, see what's going on in there. The ones that are, sort of sickly, making sure they're doing okay this morning and making sure everyone has water and stuff like that. And then, I make the coffee. I usually eat breakfast. And then usually I start my morning out working on teaching stuff. My classes right now are all online. So I record like mini lectures and grade things and email students and all that kind of stuff, usually for the first couple of hours, Monday through Friday. That's what I do. And then, by about 10 a.m. or so, I spend most of the rest of the workday doing Magic stuff, researching videos, writing articles for Card Kingdom, things like that, making the videos that are on this channel, basically, and the content I make for other outlets as well. So I do that for the rest of the workday. Then my wife is usually off of work Monday through Friday around 5:30 or 6. I really like cooking. Not something I don't think I've ever really talked about before, but that is it's another one of my big hobbies, I guess. So I'm the one who I work from home these days, obviously, too, and I'm the one who makes dinner, and I like making dinner, so I make us dinner. We have dinner. We usually watch something on television, not really television these days. We stream something while we eat dinner. Right now, it's usually we're rewatching not all of Doctor Who, but the reboot starting from 2005, or the revival, I guess is the better term. So, we do that sort of thing. After we're done eating, we usually go for a walk. We go to a local pond where we also check on animals, usually see if domestic waterfowl, farm ducks basically have been dumped there. And if there are some dumped there, making sure, a lot of them don't know how to forage, but it's hard to catch them. So we feed those ones. The ones we can catch, we usually do and take them to a local rescue or people who are willing to take them onto their farm and stuff like that. And then we usually come home, watch something else, and go to bed pretty much. So that's a typical day for me. Lots of animals. and lots of magic, I guess, is the consistent thing in the day. So yeah, that is a typical day in my life, Monday through Friday. Weekends, you know, if we want to go there too, I stream most mornings from about 7 to 11 a.m. my time, and then the rest of the day, my wife and I spend together, you know, doing whatever. Usually animal related things, going to, you know, her family lives in town, so we spend some time out at their house and stuff like that. So typical day, Monday through Sunday for me. That's what it's like. So that does it for this Q&A. If you enjoyed it and want to see more of them, obviously I can do more. It's obviously kind of low effort content. I just have to answer things and talk. But if people like it, I'm happy to do more of it. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, like I said, let me know. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know that too. You know, all the data I can get is helpful. So yeah, if you want to see more content from me, most of which isn't like this at all, subscribe. And yeah. So yeah, that will do it for this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.